And welcome to the STLSportsPage Cardinals Chat, our second edition of the program here. We thank everybody for joining us. If you're tuning in live, we're going to have some conversation with all these fine folks who have joined us, and also putting it up on STLSportsPage.com for those of you who are watching on the tape here. So we thank you for joining us, and hopefully you can log in next time to maybe be a part of our conversation. We're going to go around and introduce everybody who's joined us here and talk a little bit about who they are, and then kind of get on to some topics here. So I know the pictures come up differently on everybody's screens, guys, so I'm just going to call you out by name, and if you can kind of wave and chat here for a second, and I'm not going to go row by row because, as I say, I don't think the pictures are lined up exactly the same on my computer as they are on everybody else's computer. So first to join us is Cindy Seiske. Cindy, if you could wave. Cindy's a season ticket holder, lives here in St. Louis, been a Cardinal fan for a long time, so I know she's got a lot of opinions and questions about what's going on. She, like Patty Wood, was supposed to be going to London this summer for the series against the Cubs, and is not going to be able to make that this time. So, Cindy, thank you for joining us.
Uh-huh.
We also have Bob Mayhall with us. Bob is a longtime friend of mine who lived in St. Louis for forever. He actually was in one of the people in Sally and my wedding, so he goes way back with us, and has been in a career in sports broadcasting for a long time as well. So he's got issues. His one main, can I call it your day job now or your night job as a youth volleyball coach, a select team volleyball coach. So he's been affected by that, obviously, as well as all the baseball sports being wiped out. So Bob, thank you for joining us as well.
My pleasure.
Give him his 2 cents. With Bruce and Glenda Wolf, or who comes up next in my picture, they're easy to figure out because they're the only one with 2 people in the picture. But they live in the Villages in Florida. They were with us on the first call. Bruce is the head of the Cardinal Nation fan club down there. How many members do you have in that club?
370.
370. So obviously
it's
down in Florida.
Bad for a place in Florida.
Exactly. Is that the biggest one among the baseball teams?
Well, we advertise that we're the biggest outside of St. Louis.
But the biggest baseball club are, of course, the Red Sox.
There are more Red Sox people down there?
Yeah, like 1,400 of them.
How do you put up with them? They're feeling a little low today.
It was tough in 18, but 19, no problem.
Yeah, they're a little more. They're a little quieter now.
Next to those guys on at least on my screen is Mark Burns. Mark joins us. So for those of you who don't know, we're on the first call. Mark is in Sydney, Australia, and his connection to the Cardinals is he's the father of Jake Burns, who was one of the Cardinal minor league prospects. They signed him last year as a 16-year-old catcher, and I did a story on him right before we left Florida. Great kid, and I know he's happy to be back in Australia at home, but I know he also misses being in Florida playing baseball, right, Mark?
You better believe it.
So Mark's going to
nowhere where he'd rather be is over there right now.
Say what?
There's nowhere where he'd rather be but over there right now.
Yeah, but he's getting along all right back home?
Yeah, he's training hard, working out hard, pretty much identical to his spring preparation, off-season spring preparation. So, yeah, he's doing well.
Okay, great. So thank you for Mark again for joining us. He was on the first call, as was Patty Wood. She lives in Washington, Missouri. Say hi. She's another longtime Cardinal fan and ticket holder, and has been to Florida for spring training many times as well. So Patty has opinions on what's going on with the Cardinals. We're glad that she has joined us. Mike Reeves is with us. Mike is lives in Farmington, Missouri. Was on the first call. He's the guy who brings us all the interviews and post-game sound when we are playing Cardinal baseball, and we put up on the site. So, and Mike and I, of course, host the Cardinal podcast with the Cardinal Rewind show during the season. So appreciate him, and we'll be looking for his opinions and contributions here as we continue along here for a little bit. Next to him is Chuck Schwab. Chuck is a good friend of ours, lives in New Jersey. I don't remember. Sorry, I forgot the town. Princeton?
Pennington.
Anyway, it's close to Princeton, all right?
It's close to Princeton.
Okay. And Chuck is a regular at the Homewood Suites in Florida when we're down there every year for spring training. He was there with his wife Margie this year when they canceled everything and sent everybody home. So good to see Chuck, and we'll get an update from him about how he's hearing about things going on up in the East Coast. And then last but not least, Mike Raines has joined us from West County here. Mike is our youngest son, the number 2 son with BJ there, and he and Laurie are out in Manchester, Missouri, Baldwin, Missouri. And Mike, as you mentioned, I think a little bit ago, some of you wanted to call, some of you weren't. His job is the media and social media manager and operations manager for Big League Impact, which is Adam Wainwright's charity and Kyle Gibson's charity. So he's got a couple of insights that he's going to join with us as well. So I think the first thing I'd like to do is kind of go around the panel and ask everybody the same question and kind of get your feedback we'll kind of go on from there, is getting along without baseball. We've now passed a month since we were playing baseball. We've almost through the first month of the regular season that we should have been playing. Getting close to, I think, canceling all the April games. So, Cindy, I know that you're missing it. How are you faring without baseball these days?
I don't know. Well, working from home, I don't know if I work more or less hours. I just get my reminders every game that I miss. But I am happy that I did get my refund for my London tickets.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I was worried about that, but that hit my bank account just the other day. So
good. Bob, I know you're probably missing the volleyball practices and tournaments more than you are baseball, but you try to catch all the games that you can too. I know.
Well, I do, but I really am missing sports. Period. Whether it's hockey, and baseball or anything else that was on. Somebody says something these days anymore, and I can recite a line or think of a line that's in a TV commercial. I've been watching so much television outside of sports. So, they mentioned the World Health Organization, WHO, and I think of that owl in that commercial, and I say, you pay too much for your glasses. It's just, I got to get away from, I need a baseball game. I need a hockey game because there are only so many movies you can watch that you really want to watch, and then you need some fresh programming. So I kind of hope they get it together here pretty soon. I don't know that they're going to be able to. I know they just extended the deadline in St. Louis to May 15th, and we had a big tournament planned for the convention center downtown. It's been postponed twice, and now they had to cancel it because of that. So that's completely gone. And we just don't know what's going to happen from here on out. So up in the air, I said, but I guess we all need to stay home and get this over with.
Yeah, absolutely. Bruce and Glenda, how about you guys? You faring all right down there in Florida, sunny Florida? At least you get outside at least a little bit, right?
we can get outside. And one of the ways that we kind of stay connected with baseball is we do a lot of reading about baseball, and we've been reading a lot about the plans for Arizona, Florida, whatever. And some of the best information comes from your STLSportsPage.com. So I've enjoyed the articles. I particularly like that article about that kid in Brooklyn that didn't come down the first day he was only there for like a day, came down for spring training and he had to leave. That was is his last name Justice?
Justo, Francisco Justo, yeah.
Yes, a really, really interesting article about that kid. And especially with New York being the epicenter of the coronavirus, it's particularly interesting.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. How about you?
Okay. Mark, I know that you're the farthest away from the baseball scene, but you guys tune in every day to see. You've got a vested interest in it, of course, with your son Jake. But I know you're missing it as a fan too.
Oh, absolutely. We've look. Just to give you an update of what's happening in Australia with the virus, we've done a magnificent job. We're down to about 6 or 7 cases a day at the moment, which is just phenomenal. We've really, at its peak, it was about 400 cases a day. We've now got it down to about 7. They're looking at relaxing some of our strict lockdown laws in about 3 weeks' time. So they just want to make sure everything's nice and even. But, our lockdown laws are we can't have any more than 2 people socialising together outside of your household. So it's pretty tough. But, my boys are great. I've got, as you know, Jake, who's now just turned 17, and his younger brother, Jai, who's 15. He's a left-handed pitcher. Jake's a catcher. So they're working out every day together. So, they've been great together. It's good to see. But, yeah, I'm missing my baseball big time. In fact, we were due to leave for Florida in about 2 weeks' time. We were coming over to watch Jake in his extended, when extended started. And we're also bringing a couple of teams from Sydney to play in a perfect game tournament in Fort Myers. So unfortunately, that's all on hold and probably won't get off the ground this year. But missing it greatly.
Was your other son going to play in that too?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was coming over to play in that, and then spend a couple of weeks watching Jake play.
Okay, Patty, how about you? You're faring okay without baseball?
I'm pretty bored. I've watched a lot of reruns of other baseball games, and I'm like, oh, that's right. He was our second baseman, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm just kind of bored. I do get out, and I have family nearby, but I really do miss baseball. look at my calendar and go, oh, I was supposed to be there today. And
I've tried to resist that. I've tried to resist looking at the calendar to figure out where the Cardinals should be playing today. I see, to other people talking about it on the internet and stuff, but I've tried to maintain, distance
I
from
haven't
that.
done it too often, but where my tickets are, every once in a while I'll walk across that and I'll go, oh, there's another, I know I've missed 2 games. I don't even know if I've missed any more than that right now. But so yeah, we're faring well in Washington, but we're missing it. So.
Mike Reeves, I know you're missing it both for personal and financial reasons, because obviously you're one of the people that are affected by this, that you're losing income from all the games that you would be covering for various outlets.
Yeah, there's no way that you can do anything other than keep track of it if you're in my shoes. I've got a calendar that I have the April games on the calendar. I have the May game. I know they're not going to be played, but they're kind of reminders of where I was going to be and what was going to be happening. And I kind of like being reminded of it because it makes me more, I guess, anxious to get back to whatever normal will be when this whole thing is said and done. But I don't know that normal will ever be what it was before. And I don't want to be overly dramatic with it, but guys, I think we're seeing the reaction and the way in which the government responded to this and how wide ranging it was and how many people have been affected. It's going to be a long time before you could just, you're not going to wave a magic wand over the thing and say, all right, today we can all go back and do what we were doing prior to the virus. It's going to take an awfully long time before any of that occurs. And it's been a rough go. I tried to call this the new normal and adjust to it. Don't really think I've done that yet. I miss having the games on when the Cards were on the road. I miss horribly sitting in the press box and watching the games from Busch Stadium, and hope at some point this year we can do that. I'm not thinking it's going to happen, but it's been a rough go. I would tell you the truth.
Chuck Schraub has joined us from New Jersey, and I think he's obviously a big Cardinal fan, but you've got a different perspective, living in a different part of the country. How are things up there?
Pretty quiet overall. I think the hardest part is waking up in the morning and trying to figure out what day of the week it is. Everything sort of just runs together. Certainly missing the start of the baseball season for sure. We'd be, a round or so into Stanley Cup hockey right now, which we're certainly missing. But the days seem to move by. For us here, my 3 grandsons are just down the street, so between playing goalie sometimes, which is dangerous, the days go by pretty well. But things are shut down quite a bit here. There's just not much traffic on the roads. Not a lot to do during the day. Margie actually got out to a food store today for the first time and got 10 rolls of toilet paper, so that was a big high five when she got home. Yeah, we certainly miss sports, that's for sure. And Jersey, I think people are just aware Jersey's one of those spots that has been hit hard. We're sort of in the central part of the state, close to Pennsylvania. So we've been kind of fortunate in our little town here that we haven't been really hit by it, as opposed to what's happened up north. But the state's shut down, and I don't think things are going to happen much here until late June. At least that's what the governor seems to be kind of greasing the skids in terms of telling people.
Mike Raines is missing baseball, but he's still got to work in the sport because obviously all the charity events that have had to be scheduled or rescheduled. And Mike, how is all the shutdown kind of affecting you on a daily basis?
It's different because there's being a nonprofit, we want to do what we can to try to help other people. So we're trying to figure out how we can do that during this time frame. But yet everything that we generally run is through events and through the baseball season. So when you don't have a season, it's kind of weird to figure out how we can virtually host events now. We're trying to talk through that. So it's a little weird. And, then on the personal side, myself and, Lori, my wife, she works for the Cardinals. So we're kind of back and forth and how we handle all this. It's a weird time for sure.
And I know Charity did announce last week a new progress that the program that they're doing about donating food. Could you talk about that just for a second?
I guess it was last week we announced it. The Home Plate Project, we raised almost $1 million to donate to local food banks to provide just over 4 million meals in all 30 MLB cities. and that was straight player donations and a match from Garth Brooks' foundation, Teammates for Kids.
That's great. That's great. So obviously, Adam, we all know Adam is a great guy and a great, very charitable person. So I'm not surprised at all that he's got involved in that kind of an effort. Since we did this a couple of weeks ago, those guys of you who were on the call, I mean, we did talk about kind of work through then some of the ideas that people are talking about as far as, kind of bringing everybody to Arizona and playing games there, or bringing some of the games to Arizona, some guys to Florida. The only thing that has really changed since that about ideas is now they're talking about maybe possibly doing another set of games in Texas, which has a couple of dome stadiums, but it doesn't seem like any of those plans have gotten an overwhelming amount of support from what I've seen from players and everything, especially, if you have to be quarantined away from your families. And almost nobody is talking about the possibility of playing games in front of fans or in your home stadiums this year. I mean, is everybody kind of realized, I guess, that that's the way this season is going to be if we do have a season, that it's going to be in some neutral park with no fans, and we're just going to have to all watch on television? Cindy, what do you think?
Is that for the whole season?
I mean, it seems to me that I have not heard anything official about anything, but I just don't see any indications that maybe by September we could play. But then again, if you're talking about extending the season into October, there's a lot of places in the northern half of the country that you don't want to be playing baseball in October. So I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I think there's a better chance that they're playing games without fans than they are fans. Yes, Mark.
Yeah. I was just going to give you, like in Australia, all sports been shut down, but our major winter sport is what I'll call football, which is rugby league. And they've just announced they're going to start up. I think it's about towards the end of May, which is a few months late. But they're bringing all the teams from New Zealand and around Australia into Sydney. They're pretty much going to quarantine the teams, and they're going to play without fans. And we're a long way progressed in terms of eradicating the virus than perhaps you are over there. And even with our low numbers, they're still going to play without fans for the whole season at this stage.
Hey, Rob, one of the issues that I think has got to be addressed that's going to be so difficult for any of the professional sports is that the number of virus cases varies so much across the country here in the United States. You can go to one state where, it's pretty much under control. We think we got it. Well, maybe you could play there earlier, but then are the Mets and Yankees, can you even dream of putting people in New York, given how bad things have been there, or in Los Angeles, or anywhere in California for that matter? Since I don't think you could ever get the entire country in the same spot, I can't even visualize anything other than what they talked about: Texas, Florida, California, or Arizona. You could talk about those. I can't see the players ever agreeing to it. I can't see the players saying, okay, we'll be quarantined in hotels and to the ballpark, and that's all we're going to do for whatever number of months this is going to be. I can't see them agreeing to it. And then I saw where some of the Players Association, I guess, said that they don't think salaries should be affected by games being played.
I was going to get to that, yeah.
Well, if that's going to become a sticky point, now you're getting into stuff beyond just playing the games. Now you're getting into, a little bit of a rift between maybe owners, players. There's just so much that's out there. I'm still leaning where we were, when we did this the first time. If I see live Major League Baseball and games that count anywhere in the country this season, I'm still going to be stunned. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. I don't think there's a way to logistically make it happen, and I'm prepared to have.
As much as we would like to see baseball, guys, I mean, what would you rather they not play any games at all this season, if that's going to be the option, and just wait until next year and hopefully we can be back at home with fans involved? I mean, what would you rather see happen? Chuck, what about you?
I think from an entertainment standpoint, and I think that's how sports would be looked at, pure entertainment at this point. I don't think you'd have the real fan fever being involved. I'm not. I really just don't think it would work. It'd be kind of fun to just watch some games, but honestly, I just don't think I'd get into it nearly close to what I do during the regular season.
And Bob, I know you mentioned how much you were wanting to watch a game, but I mean, would that really be? People would watch just from the novelty standpoint, but wouldn't it be so different than normal?
Yeah, it would. But we have to wait. We don't have a choice. I was just thinking about, reports I've heard that, they've entertained the thought of taking blood from people that have recovered from the coronavirus that has the antibodies in it already, and putting it into people that have either mild or severe cases, and they're able to help them. They're going to try and see if they can help them along. I think from this point on, the focus is going to have to be on coming up with something that helps people to get past this if they get it.
Mm-hmm.
And, that needs to be the focus instead of whether or not we're, making money or losing money. Because, they're saying that if this happens again, if we get another wave of this, it's going to be unbelievable. And then we start all over again right from the beginning. So, I think as much as we all miss baseball, I'll tell you what, just sitting around on the weekends, I think you get a greater appreciation for why players make so much money from the television contracts, because these TV networks, they need programming. They have absolutely nothing to put up there for anybody to watch. And it really is bad. Monday through Friday's not so bad, but on Saturday and Sunday, there is just nothing to watch unless it's, they replay your favorite basketball game, or, if, play Kansas winning a national championship, you're going to enjoy watching something like that.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, we have to wait. We have to wait. And the focus, I think, needs to be from now on is coming up with something that's going to fight this off in people.
Yeah, and you really feel for, like, Mark, I mean, I know your son's involved here. You just feel for all the guys involved. I mean, people talk about the major league level, but people kind of forget that the minor leagues can't do anything until they figure out what the big league clubs are going to do. And, you're talking about a year of development that would be really critical for not only your own son, but everybody else in that situation.
Well, yeah, but even the prospects are coming through right now. They've sent all the Australians back from college in the US. A lot of them would have been draft eligible this year, and with a 5 to 10 round draft, a lot of those Australians aren't going to get drafted. I would suspect that international signings from Australia will be down. Like, we only probably have 4 or 5 kids sign into pro contracts a year out of Australia, but I'd be surprised if any of our prospects even get a look in this year. So it's pretty tough for those kids that are, 17, 18, 19, that have aspirations either to go to college or to play pro ball. It's really disheartening for them.
And Mike Raines, I know, obviously you mentioned you work for Adam Wainwright, and I did a story on Adam last week of some other guys about kind of how they're faring. And I know he talked about having a busy house because he's got 5 kids at home, but I know he misses baseball. But he also was very adamant in his opinion that the quarantine idea won't go very far with him. And I got to think that a lot of guys with families, especially, are not going to want to spend 3 or 4 months away from their family.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In the conversations that we've had with players is that they don't want to leave their family because, in Adam's case, they have 5 kids, and Jenny can't handle that by herself if he's gone for 3 months. At least during a regular season, at most he's gone, 10 days maybe here and there on the longest road trip, and that's probably it. So I think that's one of the challenges, And then, to a couple points that people mentioned earlier is when you think about trying to play in one area, be it Florida, be it Arizona, wherever it is, not only are you losing revenue just from no fans there, but what do you have to change from a sponsorship standpoint from the team side? Because you're going to lose how many sponsors that, don't have billboards or don't have whatever, because all you have is TV. So then how do you recoup that revenue?
Right. No, exactly right. Yeah, I think, that's the problem is we're going to feel the effects of this, like Patty, not only just this year, but it's going to be, we're going to feel the effects of this and baseball not playing games for a couple of years. It's going to affect, signings. It's going to affect contracts. I mean, we don't really know yet what the total ramifications are going to be.
And are people, when it does come back, going to be not as excited as we are as a group of fans that are such big baseball fans? Are they going to have found something else to fill their time with and don't want to, spend their time doing it anymore? I was really hoping that we would come out of this realizing that educators were important and healthcare workers and all this, and athletes would not be paid so much money. And the others, as a retired teacher, they would pay the right people the right amount of money. But anyway, I just wonder how strong the sports will come back when they do come back. I don't think we'll play this year. I'll be interested if we play any sports this year. I think a vaccine is really important. I think a cure something to help people in that area are very important as well. So I just think that it's going to be a huge change, sponsorship aside, you know. So
I agree.
Hey, Rob, I may not be in for the entire length of our visit, but I wanted to get everybody's opinion based on where you are, because we got people all across the states and, of course, out of the states. If, and this isn't happening, it's just a fun discussion. If they said May 15th, baseball returns, and it returns to the stadiums, it returns as we know it. There will be 40,000 at Busch Stadium or wherever it is that you're living. You can go to a major league game with 40 to 45,000 people. It's allowed. It's okay. The government allows it. Everything's ready to go. Would you feel, from a health perspective, would you feel safe to go to a place with 40 or 45,000 people within the next 2 to 3 weeks? If they allowed it, would you do it? Anybody go?
Let's go around and ask everybody individually. Let's go. Cindy first. Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Bob?
Absolutely not. My biggest concern is that everything will start too soon, and the social distancing, the staying at home, and it's all just going to come back with a vengeance. So when things do settle down and they start opening things, I think it has to go slowly. And yes, I think I will be very apprehensive to be sitting right next to somebody that I don't know at the ballpark. You know, it's one thing when you visit your family or people that you know, and you kind of know where they've been or what they do or their social.
Where they've been, yeah.
But no, I wouldn't go, and I don't know the value of the games if they started playing without fans. How many people would really watch that on TV? And what would they gain? I don't know.
Bob, would you go?
Who's saying it? The doctors and scientists or the politicians?
The politicians.
I'll throw it out there and say the government just said it's okay to start playing. We'll just go with that. Now, they say they won't open it. They say they won't do it until the medical people say it's okay, but we'll say government open it.
If the government's saying absolutely not, if the doctors and scientists are saying it, I'm going to wait and see how I feel. But I don't think we should be sitting right next to each other as season ticket holders at this point and for the foreseeable future, to be honest with you.
We've got to understand the difference between a politician and a scientist. The doctors, I saw in the news today that they didn't recommend Texas, North Carolina, or Georgia opening at all until June the 19th. June the 19th. But you got politicians that are facing all sorts of pressures. They're like has been said, Cindy said, they're going to open too soon.
Yep. Mark, what do you think? I know you're a long way away from there, but
no chance would I risk getting in an environment where there's just too many people right now. Even though we've got really low numbers and it appears quite safe, I still wouldn't risk it.
Patty?
No, I wouldn't go either. We've discussed this amongst my family who owns the season tickets, and I think we're pretty much all like, oh, no.
Yeah. Chuck, how about you?
No, as much as I miss it, I wouldn't even consider it as an option at this point. Plus, I'd probably need to find a place to sleep if I ever tried to go to a game.
Yeah.
Other than your house, I mean, yeah.
You got that right.
Mike, I mean, like you mentioned, Lori works for the Cardinals. She's in charge of season tickets. I mean, what kind of reaction is she getting? What are you hearing? I know you've had the Zoom calls with the season ticket holders. Cindy and Patty have been involved or offered the chance to listen in to Mo and Mike Schultz today. What's kind of feedback that you're hearing that she's talking about?
It's interesting. Obviously, in the scenario, would I go? I don't know, because if half the house is going there, then I guess you got to kind of reevaluate. But the feeling is that they want baseball back, but they don't want it back too quick. So how do you do it the right way? And I think that's the biggest challenge is, would people pay attention to a game that doesn't have fans? Hard to say. When you look at it strictly from a revenue standpoint, and sure, that's the best way to do it. But if you look at it from a pure safety and health standpoint, then you shouldn't be playing baseball anytime soon.
Cindy, man, Patty, I want your opinion on the as a season ticket holder and being involved with something. Do you think the Cardinals have communicated things well with you guys as far as what they're doing, what they're thinking, what the plans are? Or I know people call it ideas, not plans right now. They don't get too far away.
Yeah, I think it's been what's been on the news and things like that. I don't think they know what they're doing. So there's nothing they really can communicate other than what's been discussed at
They're waiting
a
on the science to
high
figure it out.
level.
I don't receive all the emails from the Cardinals. My sister Susan, we jokingly refer to her as the commish of our league. So, because we have, like
Yeah.
5 different groups that are
Mhm.
involved and stuff. So she gets all that information. So I don't know how good the communication is with them. I know that the games are postponed and not canceled, which is why there's
Right.
a refund on our tickets. Although I read some link today where somebody, it wasn't a season ticket holder, but he had bought tickets for a game, and he was on a live chat with a ticket representative, and he was able to get a refund, he said in this thread that I read on Facebook
Oh.
today. So that's the first I've heard of that. So I know that there are people, I have a brother or a nephew who's got a lot of money invested in a game that didn't happen. So he's wanting his, like $3,000 back because they rented a party room and that kind of stuff. So
I did see something today that Major League Baseball is getting, quote unquote, close to the cancellation of the April games. That they're going to realize that the reason why they haven't refunded the money to this point is technically the games are just postponed.
Right.
They haven't officially
Right.
said that they're going to be canceled, but I think they're getting closer to the point of realizing that even if, even at best case scenario, if they say we're going to send everybody to there's spring training sites on May 15th, you're still talking about June before you could start playing at best case scenario. So, I don't see the April and May games happening anyway. Even in a best case scenario, which I don't think we're anywhere close to the best case scenario.
And so in that case, if they do, and I don't think this will happen, but if they would play at the select 3 or 4 parks,
Right.
season ticket holders aren't going to go travel out there. So
They wouldn't have any fans anyway. They would be playing.
So
there just
are they going to
next
refund all the money at that point for all of the ticket sales? So the revenue is what, broadcasting on TV?
Mhm.
And
I think so. Yeah.
I think that would be, I don't think as many people are going to watch it. And I don't think you're going to get the advertisement income for those games like you would normally.
Sure. And I'll say this too. Not just the Cardinals, and Mike, you can weigh in on this too, but I think all of Major League Baseball is in a tough spot. They don't know really what to do. I don't think, I said this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking, and I still believe this. I don't think baseball does anything until they see what happens with the NBA and the NHL, because they were so close to just starting their playoffs and being done with their season that they're going to, they know that those leagues, I think, are going to have to take the lead and decide what happens with those leagues before baseball decides. But I think all baseball teams, the Cardinals included, are just in a tough spot about knowing what to do.
On average, it's about 37% of your revenue comes from ticket sales across MLB. So it's not a ton, but it's a great big number.
more than I thought it was.
To that point,
More than a third, yeah.
For sure, yeah. And to the point about waiting for the NBA and NHL, I think the challenge that MLB has is they can't wait too long because they play outside. NBA and NHL can wait forever being inside. They don't have to worry about the weather through November and December.
Except then they're running into the start of next season.
For sure.
Rob,
One of the things up here in the Northeast that gets some play is Broadway in New York. Those that you think about, their entire revenue comes from ticket sales, and right now Broadway's closed down through, I think it is June 7th. But getting back to Mike's point, even if all of a sudden after June 7th, they open Broadway for and think it's okay, I can't imagine people going to shows. 2,000, 3,000 people in tight quarters in New York City. So I think you could be looking, for Broadway to open up, honestly, in 2021, the way things are happening right now up here.
Bruce, what were you going to say?
What I don't understand are the how much are the players being paid? I know that the MLB said they were going to pay $170 million, I guess, per team. How is that being distributed among the players? Because the ones that have contracts aren't getting paid anything, right? Is that
they're getting paid now? It's kind of like it's almost like a strike fund almost. I think they're getting a percentage. I think they're being paid through the end of May as of now, and I think it'll be about on a normal I forgot what the percentage, like $5,000 a day. Was that right, Mike? Do you remember?
I don't remember the specifics. I know
I think it's about
more
that.
clearly defined for the minor league players than the major league players.
Right, they're getting like $400 a week, I believe, right, Mark? Isn't that what the stipend is?
I don't think it's 400 a week. It might be 400 a month.
Oh,
Kind of
okay.
sounds about right. But yeah, it's a fair, yeah, it's reasonable size. Yeah.
So, I mean, the players are getting paid, but it's technically in advance on their salaries for this year at the major league level. So if the games are played, then that money goes back into their salary. And if the games are not played, then they don't have to repay that loan. So, I mean, they're getting money. But I think like one of the problems is going to be if they don't play without fans. I do think there are going to be players to object if the league comes to them and say, "Hey, you got to take another salary cut because we can't afford to pay you $10 or $20 million a year when we're not making any money." And I think that's going to become a very serious issue for the players here if they agree with that.
One thing I'd like to ask for those of you involved with law is in our qualifiers in volleyball. We have big qualifying tournaments where there are 104 courts, 4 teams on each court, morning and afternoon. I mean, there's thousands of players, thousands of parents. And in early March, before all this started, they sent around a directive in writing from the USA Volleyball governing body that normally after every match, we would go to the net and pass each player and shake hands and say, great game, much like they do at the end of a Stanley Cup tournament, a Stanley Cup final tournament. And so they sent out the directive and said, we're not going to touch anybody anymore. We're going to stay this far apart, this and that and the other. The concern is that if some kid would have gotten coronavirus and died, then there could have been a lawsuit saying that you didn't do enough, you didn't make the necessary precautions to keep my kid from dying. So what does this say about Major League Baseball, the NHL, any of these other organizations down the road? If they let people come back and people get the disease or the virus and die, is there a possibility of lawsuits there? So are they going to be looking at that? And what decision are they going to make? Who are they going to listen to? Again, the scientists and doctors or the politicians?
I wonder if they'll put a waiver on the back of the ticket like they do for if you're hit by a foul ball.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll give the non-legal answer, but the thought that hit my mind is, for those of us in the United States, yes, there would be a lawsuit because there could be a lawsuit for just about anything you want to put out there for, and something that's serious.
You might not win, but
oh yeah, you might not. But would there be lawsuits? I don't even doubt that somebody would try to file one. Where it would go, I have no idea. I don't have that knowledge, but I would feel very confident that people would indeed. They would look at it as, well, you told us we could come back to the ballpark. Look what happened. You could ever prove that, it happened at the ballpark. But yeah, there's lawsuits aren't very hard to come by in the United States at this juncture.
It's interesting.
Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
So I was just going to say, it's interesting. The Australian government are looking, or they're actually developing an app for your phone that will only download data of the people that you've been in close proximity to for 15 minutes or more, identify the owner of that other number, and if they've got the coronavirus, it will then, if that person related to that number's got the coronavirus, it will then be able to track who else has been in contact with that person. Now, I believe New York City is also looking at a similar application. And so that will be one way of keeping everything under control, that if you've been in contact with a person 15 minutes, bingo, that you're at risk, therefore you need to be tested and stuff like that.
Well,
So
I think it's also.
I think it's interesting, Bob, that they don't want them to slap hands after the volleyball game, but they're going to play with that same volleyball, going back and forth across the net and spiking it and hitting it and passing it and all that kind of stuff. I think that's interesting in volleyball, that's one of the things that they've come out with. So.
And that's exactly what everybody said.
Okay, good.
So are we supposed to take the ball after every play and deodorize it, and defung it?
Because so it's really got to in volleyball. Why would you, want to stop every play,
Well, not only that, but sometimes balls come from the other court onto your court. You got to throw it back over. So you got to touch. A lot of people are going to touch that volleyball.
Well, I think one of the scary. Bruce, I'll get to you in a second. I was going to say one of the scary things to me in how they figure all this out is that they still don't know how the virus is spread. I mean, was this from something you touched? Is it can you pass it through mouth contact. It's just, that there's too many things that we still don't know about the spread that I just think it's going to be a roadblock when they try to say, even if they say it's safe to come back. I don't know what's going to happen. Bruce, go ahead.
Well, and when they say it's safe, is it because you're going to be social distancing, the 60? Right. Well, the catcher and the batter and the ump are not within 6, they're closer than 6 feet of each other.
Or holding a runner at first base. Yeah.
And you're right there with the player. There is no distancing on things like that. So
you're going to see a lot of people volunteering to play center field, probably.
Yeah.
Well, they started spring training. They've got 2 weeks of spring training in Korea. Started their baseball there. They've got 2 weeks there. The umpires are in a mask and gloves, and the coaches and the manager, everybody's got gloves. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. They're going 2 weeks spring training, and their season starts in 2 weeks. No fans. But
that's in Korea, right?
That's in Korea.
Yeah. We did tune into a call the other day that the Baseball Hall of Fame did with a friend of ours, Kurt Smith. It was a presentation, Zoom kind of presentation like this, and they actually were talking about past situations that baseball had been involved with, and one of them was during the Spanish flu in 1918 and 1919, and they showed a picture of a game, and I think it was an exhibition game, but it was big league teams playing in California, and they showed the batter, the catcher, and the umpire, and all of them were wearing face masks during the game. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And Rob, what happens if baseball ever got up and running and a player tests positive for the disease?
Right. Awful. The term John Moselle used, that would be a disaster.
So lots of questions would have to be answered.
And if you're a player and you don't want to go back because you're afraid of contacting the virus, what are your ramifications there? You just cut and you don't get, what's right. You're not injured, but you're making a decision. I guess it's just like saying I'm quitting. I don't know. Those are interesting thoughts.
Well, it's like the players who don't want to be quarantined without their family. What do they
do? You can't stop. And if somebody does get sick, you can't stop the season once you started, can you? How does that look?
There you go.
I think all those are valid points, and I think that's something that's why baseball's in this situation that they're in, with not really knowing what to do. Sally informs me that I've forgotten that the talk that Kurt Smith made last week on the Hall of Fame, we do have that available on our website as well. So if everybody missed that call, it was an interesting chat about not only baseball during World War I and World War II, but as I say, the other situations that they've had as well and through history. So, well, I don't think we've ever really kind of faced a situation like we're in right now as a country, or as a baseball, as a sport individually, or all the sports collectively. It's going to be interesting to see how the NFL draft goes tomorrow night, because they're doing it obviously much different than anything that we've ever seen before. And, they're still worried about whether they're even going to be able to get back. And you talk about, the major sport in this country, as much as we all love baseball, it is still the NFL. And if we get in a situation where they're playing NFL games this fall without fans, or they're not playing NFL games, then I think, maybe that's when people will say we have to have a vaccine and we got to get this done so we can get football back.
Hey, Rob, I'll throw this out there before I end up having to bail on you here. I would love to listen to what anybody else has to say about this, even if I have to go back and watch it later. If you play this year, 81 games, they find a way to start July. They play all the games in Florida. They play them in Texas. They play them in Arizona. The Cardinals never come to Busch Stadium, not once for the season. Yet the Cardinals win the 2020 World Series. Would the emotional investment be the same as any of the other titles that they've won? Or would it almost feel like it's an asterisk type World Series championship for whatever team wins it? But we're talking Cardinals. Would you have the same emotional investment? They win the World Series, but you never saw them play a single game in person in St. Louis. How would that feel?
I would. I wouldn't have a problem with it at all.
Yeah, but you live in Florida. You're not going to a game anyway.
I don't think it would have this. I don't think it would be the same feeling, but I think by that time, hopefully a lot of this is past us. We're talking October, November, that maybe that part of it would be kind of more of a celebration of getting through this pandemic, not just necessarily the World Series. But no, the fans aren't invested in it,
To me, the strangest part would be that I don't think there would be any emotion involved because there would be no fans. I say
Right.
how much of the feeling of the excitement and the feeling of that, hey, we just won. It's not necessarily by the players. It's the way the fans react and the crowd shots and everything during games. That's a big thing that you're going to miss.
Right. And how are the players going to feel playing the game with no fans?
How many
Well,
times?
I played Floyd League.
How many?
I played high school baseball. We never had fans, but all of us tried our best because they were competitive spirit.
Hey, we go down to watch the Palm Beach Cardinals. What Dan Villadero is the coach down there. We go down there and watch them. We're about the only people in the stadium. We love it. We're used to not being in the stadium with fans.
Mike, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, how many times do you hear a player in a post-game speech when he's talking about, how the game went or what he did, and how many times does he acknowledge the fans when talking about it? Almost every time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that makes the atmosphere. That's what makes the game special to me. Is the fans. I mean, it would be the same game probably on the field, but it would be different. It would be odd. It really would. Even watching on television, it would be odd. So
I think it would be pure entertainment. It would be something to do, but the emotional investment would not be there. I know for me it wouldn't be.
You have to be careful as an announcer not to talk too loud because you don't want them to hear you and saying, he's 0 for 18. He might hear you at the plate and go, oh, well, thanks.
Well,
they can point that out,
Speaking from a purely personal standpoint, I mean, that's one of the other questions. If they're going to really limit access to who gets to go to the games, what's the media's role going to be in this? Are they going to say we just have to watch the game on television and get a Zoom conference with the manager after the game? Or how what's our access going to be to interview players to get in the clubhouse? I mean, they banned the media from the clubhouse in spring training even before a week or so before we knew anything else was going on. So. I think they're going to be very careful with access and very access with, controlling everything. So it's going to be different from our professional standpoint too. So
that's why it's important that they come up with something that's going to at least help us live with this. If there's no better phrase, we have to be able to live with this in order to move forward. And I think that's where the focus needs to be and I think that's what they're trying to do. But, in the meantime, you have to look at, what was it, 1918? The previous one.
Mm-hmm.
It came back and more people died. We have to clip this and we have to end it before we go get amongst each other again.
And even if they are quarantined and they're playing baseball in August and then they have the second wave, then what happens? Mike, I think you mentioned, you don't want to play for 2 weeks or a month and then, we got to stop again. I mean, that'd be awful too. So. And I want to go around and get a closing comment from everybody about what you think is going to happen, what you want to see happen, and then we'll wrap this up. So, Cindy, you go first. What do you think is going to happen? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I would love to see baseball played, but I don't think it's feasible to be safe. I certainly hope that they don't listen to the politicians and they listen to the medical staff and the epidemiologists and the people that know what they're doing. I hate to say I hope we don't play this year, but I think that's the best for the health and well-being of all of those people involved in baseball.
Bob, how about you?
It really makes me sad because going to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown has been on my bucket list, and I wanted to go this year because my favorite player, Ted Simmons, is going in, and I'm probably not going to be able to get to go. So it's just
they may cancel the ceremony. So
yeah, and so but looking into it was tough to get a ticket anyway. Mm-hmm. So like I say, I miss baseball, and it sure would be nice to watch the Blues in the Stanley Cup final or the Stanley Cup playoffs anyway. But we have to get this. It has to be to the point where the scientists and the doctors say, okay, it's time to go back. Let's go forward. Otherwise, Bruce, I'm not interested.
Bruce and Glenda?
Well, I'm still hoping for the Florida, Arizona spring training sites. Most of the players have, not said most, but a good number of players have home sites already in their spring training areas. Plus, both places will have gobs of homes available to rent. So players could bring their families and have nice places that aren't rented during the summer. You'd be
But
able
would they
to
really be quarantined then if they're each staying in their if they're each staying in their own house somewhere? Would they really be a quarantine situation?
No.
Well, somewhat.
We
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
But you could play. You could start. I think July the 1st and play with no fans, and then you can go through November, and then you could start the playoffs in December.
Remember, we're in Florida. You can
Yeah,
play
I
in
know.
the-
Yeah, Florida in the winter would be great. I wouldn't mind playing baseball in October in Florida. Mark, what do you think?
Oh, look, sports such a big part of our fabric of society in Australia and America. And as much as I think everyone wants to watch some sort of sport right now, safety first. I think we've got to eradicate this virus one way or another. And until that's done safely, I don't see a lot of sport being played in front of fans.
Patty, what do you think?
I agree with a lot with what Mark said. I would love to see it, but I'm with the safety first. Patience is something that I keep telling people we need, and a lot of us don't have. But I think that's a key word in all this is patience.
And it seems like it can't just be baseball. I mean, baseball is not in a vacuum either. I mean, we already mentioned the NBA, the NHL, then you got college football, and you got the high school football coming back in the fall. I mean, all those people have got decisions to make too. Chuck, what do you think?
I don't think we're going to see baseball back this year. I think the NFL is going to be lucky if they're back come Thanksgiving. I know there's talk in a number of the Boston colleges, universities that of actually canceling first semester. So I think college sports could be in trouble for fall sports. I hope it's back for college basketball. But I think unless you can get back and like most people have said, we've got a handle on this virus and can control it. I don't think it's worth the risk of getting large groups together again. And I think the other way of playing games without fans is really just not an option.
Mike, you're the youngest guy here. What do you think? I know you live this on a daily basis, but what's your prediction?
Well, I think I believe Bob said the point earlier. During this time, we're really starting to see how bad TV shows are that are out there. So we need sports, right? But we can't rush back. It was after 9/11 that we wanted sports back because it created a sense of normalcy. Well, this is totally different than that. We can't just rush back because we have to keep it safe. So I think there's a fine line between wanting sports back to return life to normal, but also trying to be safe and be healthy at the same time. So I think the commissioner's got a tough job on his hands, but I also think he's not going to jump before somebody else. He's going to wait for the NHL or the NBA, I think, before he makes his decision, if I had to guess.
Right. All right, well, guys, we really appreciate everybody joining us again on this. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. I think had a lot of good dialogue of conversations and ideas. I wish we had answers, but all we got is more questions than answers. But maybe we'll get those answers here at some point. So hang in there. We're going to get through all this together. We will play baseball again at some point. We just don't know when. So thank you for joining us here on the STL Sports Page, second edition of our baseball chat here, brought to you on Zoom. Have a good day.